The last thing that we're going to look at with multiplication, now that we've done a monomial times a polynomial, a binomial times a binomial, the last thing we're going to look at is a binomial times a trinomial. Okay, and the good news is that because we didn't stick to that FOIL, first, outside, inside, last, and instead we talked about this distributive idea, while the problems today are going to be longer, they're going to follow the exact same process that we've already been looking at. And so they're not going to feel very different at all. Okay, so a binomial, right, we know this is something that has two terms. So if we have something with two terms, maybe x plus 3, and we want to multiply this times a trinomial is something with 3 terms. So maybe we have 4x squared plus 5x minus 7. We are going to take the same approach today that we looked at with a binomial times a binomial. And so what we're going to do is we're going to ignore one of the terms in the first binomial, right? I'm going to pretend that this 3 isn't here, and I'm only going to focus on this x. Okay, so as I start distributing it, x times 4x squared will give me a 4x to the third. X times 5x, all right, that's going to give me a positive 5x squared. I just now need to distribute it one more time since there's 3 pieces to distribute to. So x times negative 7 will give me a negative 7x. And then just like we did before, we will then switch. Again, I'm not covering up this addition sign because it tells me it's positive. So now I'm going to take 3 times 4x squared, which will give me a positive 12x squared. I'm writing it here again because these are both squareds, so those are my like terms. 3 times 5x gives me a positive 15x. Again, I'm writing it here because these are both x to the first power. And 3 times a negative 7 gives me a negative 21. Once I've distributed both of those, my like terms, if I wrote it in this format, are already matched up. And so we can just add straight down. So we'll have 4x to the third plus 17x squared. Make sure you catch this negative up here, so plus 8x minus 21. Okay, and just like anything else, these numbers can be bigger or smaller. We can have different variables. We could have negatives involved. So, I mean, even if we go to a 3y squared minus 6 times 4y squared minus 3y minus 2. Again, it looks different. It doesn't have this same setup up here. But as long as we stick to this distributive property, we're still going to follow the exact same process. So 3y squared times 4y squared will give us a 12y to the fourth. 3y squared times a negative 3y will give us a negative 9y to the third, right? We add the exponents. 2 plus 1 gives me 3. 3y squared times negative 2 will give me a negative 6y squared. Okay, then we will distribute the negative 6, right? This subtraction tells me that 6 is negative. So negative 6 times 4y squared will give me a negative 24y squared. Now, because this gives me a y squared, I'm going to start over here because that's its like term. Negative 6 times negative 3y will give us a positive 18y. That does not have a like term, so I'm sticking it over here to the right. And a negative 6 times a negative 2 will give us a positive 12. Sorry, I'm going off the edge there. Okay, neither of these had like terms, so I just kept continuing out over here to the right. Once we get things combined, we go straight down, right, to do that. So here we'll have a negative 30y squared. Everything else is just coming straight down, right? It's long, it's got a lot of pieces, but nothing else can be combined because they have different exponents. We're in standard form, so that's our final answer. So go ahead and try the 3 problems on the worksheet, and then when you finish, go ahead and watch the next video to check and make sure your answers are correct.